It's another beautiful day right here, Democracy Day. And of course, we are looking at so many things around democracy today. June 12th is the focus for today. Remember, Democracy Day was shifted to today to mark the annulment of June 12th election, the 1993 June 12th election that had the likes of Moshood Abiola contending for the presidential position of Nigeria. But then I never saw it. That election and that democracy spelled a whole lot for the Nigerian system. Looking at 1993 until date, then looking at the people involved and the kind of leaders we have today, can we say they are good custodians of our democracy? Can we say there are implications from the annulment of the June 12th election? Can we say everyone who was involved in that June 12th election have played one vital role or the other that has promoted our democracy today? Well, this is going to form the basis of our discussion today on The Desk. My name is Ramsey Enoch Agbo, and of course, I have my guest is already seated in the studio, and he's going to be joining us on the program today. He's a former permanent secretary, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and of course, he is also the former president of the United Nations Human Rights Council. These are the people that have gone, they have seen, and they have conquered as far as human rights, participation in elections, and every other thing, just like it happened during the election in 1993 is concerned. And he is going to be adding his voice to the conversation today. After this break, I will unveil my guest and we'll continue with The Desk. Stay with us.
Do you know that global television can be watched in Nigeria and all over the world?
Download the Global TV Nigerian mobile app for Android and iOS devices to watch global television real-time from around the world. What are you waiting for?
Start downloading and stay connected to global television.
Many thanks for joining us on The Desk this beautiful evening. It is still, the euphoria is still right there, talking about the celebration of June 12th, Democracy Day. What kind of democracy do we have in Nigeria today? Democracy, like they said, is government of the people, for the people, and by the people. Joining me on the conversation today is, of course, Professor Martins Ehumobi. It's good to have you join us on the program this evening.
Thank you very much, Ramsey. It's good to be here with you.
I'm so excited that I'm having you on the program today because you are a historian, and everything that happened on the 12th day of June in 1993. I know you have it at your beck and call. In case you don't know, like I said, he's the former permanent secretary, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and also former president of the United Nations. Of course, he is the one that is going to be talking to us today on the program. And I'm so excited that all of this will be coming on your way to make us understand what June 12th is all about. Anytime you hear about June 12th or you think about it, what comes to mind?
Thank you very much, Ramsey. When I hear of June 12th, 1993, what strikes me immediately was the democracy, the struggle for democracy in Nigeria. What transpired on that day just epitomized the complexity, the history, the challenge, and what needs to be done to make democracy work in any society or country. What strikes me also is that my views as a historian is confirmed that the history of democracy is not a straight line trajectory. It is a process. There's nowhere anywhere in the world, even those who have 300 years, 500 years of democratic practice as experience, can say that they have a perfect edifice, a perfect representation of democracy. So what we witnessed on June 12, 1993, was our own Nigerian experience in the growth trajectory of democracy. Nigeria became independent, of course, as you all know, on 1st of October, 1960. And by 1993, we were just 30 years plus as a democracy, but also with bastardized process through military intervention. So that came in and disrupted the process after the first 4 or 5 years. And we went on and on and on and on until there was an election in the 80s, but that again was disrupted, and then you had June 12th, 1993, which was an effort to restore democracy back on its wheel, but was sabotaged last minute, as we will go on to further explain in the course of this conversation. But it just confirms to be the fact that democracy is not a straight line. The growth or development of democracy is not a straight line trajectory. And that those who study or who critique democracy must look at it objectively and look at it case by case. Thank you.
All right. That's a very nice one. Now, let's look at the June 12th election. Some Nigerians believe that that is one of the most free and fair elections that we've had in Nigeria. Are you of the same school of thought? Tell us why, if you are.
Yes, the June 12th election was one of the finest elections we ever had. Because here you had just two parties, the SDP, Social Democratic Party, and the NRC, National Redemption Convention Party. Two parties. So it is like you see in some other parts of the world. The United States, for example, has two-party structure. Britain, two main parties. There are other, and then of course there's also accommodation for individuals who may wish to contest those positions doing so. So I'm impressed by the fact that that June 12th election was especially apt and timely for a country as complex and complicated as Nigeria in terms of diversity. And yet, what we saw was a southerner in the person of MKO Abiola coming out from the SDP, contesting against a northerner from Kano, the heartbeat of the north in terms of demography and history. And yet, the process was free and fair. And here we saw the potential of MKO Abiola from the south, of Yoruba origin, winning the election. even in the north, sweeping majority of the votes from the north. The northern candidate from Kano did not win the majority, such majority as Abiola had in the north. And he lost that election. Another thing that struck me in this particular election was that there was no reference to, nobody was intimidated by which religion the person belonged to or which creed he practiced. This was a Muslim ticket, so to speak, that we'll call it today. But at that time, nobody called it Muslim ticket. But that's what it was. Abiola was a Muslim and Shofar was a Muslim. But that didn't matter. Abiola swept all the votes and emerged. Now we know that he won that election. But I am struck by the way that Nigerians responded to these two candidates, in the way that they voted. The majority of the votes and the minority of the votes, regardless of the ethnicity, regardless of the creed or religion. Nobody cared a hoot about it. And so we have important lessons today, particularly as Nigerians, to learn from that June 12th election. But what also struck me about the election was the courage of the candidate himself. MKO Abiola was brave, was courageous. Democracy would not be given to you on a platter of gold. In history, there is a saying that power is never given in history. Power is taken. And you can't stand that if you are timid and tepid. You are neither hot nor cold. And you are timid, you are something that is right, you are scared to say that this is the right thing. Abiola, in spite of all the threat that he faced, stood strong and courageous and unintimidated and was not ready to recant, even at the threat to his life. So that stands out to me as a big lesson. But we'll come to that maybe in the course of our conversation. But this is my own initial reaction to the Democracy Day and why I think it deserves to be celebrated in Nigerian history. But that is not to say that we have not made progress ever since, no. But lessons were learned from that exercise as part of the growing process in our democratic experience as a nation. And mind you, Nigeria is only 65 years old, not yet quite 65, but 64 plus years old in practicing, in trying to live with democracy.
All right, that's quite understood. Now, let's look at democracy in its real sense. Do we have implications of that annulment haunting our democracy till date? Or we've gone over that and we have a new set of democracy now? Because Nigerians believe that after then, we've not had a free and fair elections. So, like you said, we have grown, at least to an extent. We are not where we used to be as far as democracy is concerned. But what's your assessment of democracy in Nigeria right now?
Democracy is a process. It's a process. There's no formula for achieving it. And there is no perfect state of democracy anywhere in the world. I bet you that. Even those who flaunt that they are democratic, go and see how it is practiced. That is not to say that you cannot make progress, but that has to come over time. It is not an overnight development. It is a process. A country such as ours, fabricated by an alien power, the colonizer, without really resort to consulting the citizens of that place. That was really not set up. I wouldn't say that Nigeria was instituted for the development and progress of Nigerians. Most of the ex-colonies were left or created in such a manner that they will forever be subservient or serve the interests of the former colonizing powers. But Nigeria, 276 ethnic nationalities, speaking over 500 languages. That's what is Nigeria today. It's perhaps one of the most complex and complicated former colonial territories that won independence. And that is trying to keep that structure in place for its own growth and development. So challenges are inevitable. So I would not like to say we have not made progress. We have made progress. 1993 June 12th election was a remarkable landmark. And lessons were learned from there, definitely. We reverted to democracy in 1999. after the aborted June 12th election. And since then, we've had 25 years of uninterrupted democracy. Whatever challenges that are faced are normal in my perspective. That is not to say that we cannot improve, and we are improving. But there are certain lessons that must be learned. There are certain things that we must do. We must learn lessons from that June 12th so that we do not find history repeating itself. For example, the multiplicity of parties. Today INEC has over 60 parties in Nigeria. You cannot, the June 12th election teaches us that if you have two parties, such as we had, we are bound to have a more straightforward election. Now, after elections, we spend our time going to court and doing all kinds of things, doing politics instead of governance. That is not taking us anywhere. And of course, people also have to learn, politicians also have to learn that it is not just about your own selfish interests. No, it's about the interests of the citizens of the people. MK Abiola was not hungry. MK Abiola was not looking for power for the sake of power. He was perhaps one of the richest Nigerians at that time. But his own was a given leadership that he wanted to offer. And what he had done in the private sector, he wanted to translate into the domestic, into the national sector. So that selflessness, that desire to change, to bring about positive change in society, must be the mantra that governs the mind of politicians, not just about their own selfish interests, which I'm afraid to say we seem to have gotten ourselves so involved in the most recent years. So we need to learn some lessons, and we need to draw some lessons. Nigeria is for all of us, and Nigeria must benefit all of us. But the quest for democracy must be a collective responsibility. And we all have a right and a responsibility to be part of that process, to bring out a democracy that we all need, that will bring about true development in Nigeria.
All right, that's apt. Now, you're talking, at least some of the questions that I wanted to ask, you've already spoken about them. But now, as it is right now, the crop of leaders that we have today, okay, in governance, do you see them capable of safeguarding our democracy as Nigerians?
Well, that's a very subjective question to pose. But nemo dat nunquam habet. You cannot give what you do not have. It is your responsibility as voters, as citizens, to determine how your vote will count and how you will use your vote. So instead of blaming individuals, you should blame the collectivity of Nigerians. We must take collective responsibility. If you decide to buy your dignity, your integrity and character, to sell your integrity and character and your vote for 10,000 naira, that's your choice. That's your choice. So you must take responsibility for the consequences of the choice you make. As you make your bed, so shall you lie. So we cannot be blaming just one sector. We must take collective responsibility and accept that we are all collectively responsible for where we have found ourselves today as Nigerians. And the day we decide, you and I decide that we will no longer accept the status quo and that we need positive change, it happens. The way some people voted the last time. But that is not to say that there are no structures that are sabotaging those votes. There are structures. But the day all of us as Nigerians decide that enough is enough, enough will be enough. The responsibility is yours and mine. If I say that my vote cannot be bought and that I must stop tolerating nonsense, what is not good for me, you do what is necessary to make the difference, and it will happen. And I know that history is not static. This is just a process. And we are making progress, and it's a process. There's a time that we will get to where we have to get to. And it will happen. I'm very certain about that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, this is being optimistic right here. We may not be where we really want to be yet in democracy, but we are making progress. Now, let's come back to the June 12th election. Does the June 12th election have implications on our current democracy? Because a lot of Nigerians are saying if that election was kept, we may have had elections that are really free or fair. But as it is right now, you see Nigerians doubting election results. You could remember in the just concluded 2023 election, there was a slogan, go to court. You know, instead of the electorate deciding who be the leader, there are controversies that make the end of this election come from the court. So if the 12th June election of 1993, all right, was allowed to stay, do you think it would have had implications on our democracy today and as it is right now? Can we say what we are having today is a reflection of what happened in 1993, positive or negative?
Well, we know the history of what happened in 1993. The main actors have actually written about it and have talked about it. I don't know whether we need to go through all that, but I can just, those that are relevant to the point that I want to make, I can talk about that. That is to say that what happened in 1993 was, there were positives to it, but there were also negatives to it. Change was going to happen. Very progressive developments were going to occur. And the election demonstrated the interest of Nigerians, that Nigerians were not bothered by tribe or by religion, but by delivery. The Nigerians at that time. Then, but there was, people have confessed that they sabotaged it. And a book or books have been written about this whole process, how it happened, how the annulment took place so that the results were not even declared. But the main actor who did that has come out publicly and in writing to say, yes, this was the winner of that election. I believe that if MKO Abiola had won, had been declared winner, perhaps the history of Nigeria would have changed significantly, given his pedigree as a politician, but also as a private sector successful individual, and given his own pedigree, what he had to offer. As I said, you cannot give what you don't have. But MKO Abiola had what he had to give to make Nigeria progress. But Nigeria, well, that is now history. It did not happen. But today, your question is, have we learned any lessons? Is that your question? Yes, I think we have. I have just told you about a few things that we need to learn, that we need to take away from that, what happened. One of them, for example, is that we cannot go on having multiplicity of parties in a country that's already diversified. Otherwise, you will never have consensus. And our judiciary, too, need to learn some lessons, too, that they are supposed to be the custodian of everything. So it's a matter of going to court. You say go to court as if you know what the outcome will be. No, that is scandalous to say, in my perspective. Therefore, I think we must all be resolved that we will make progress. We must all be determined to make progress, and we must do what we need to do to make that progress that we desire. What June 12th elections demonstrated was that Nigeria is a blessed nation. Nigerians are good people. Nigeria should return to those values that made them to produce the June 12th outcome, which was sabotaged, unfortunately. And I don't think, given what we have experienced in the past 25 years of uninterrupted democracy, and Nigerians are prone to anything other than democracy. But we all have to work together to achieve that goal that we need. And we cannot cast blames on any one sector and say that this is the scandal, this is the villain, and this is the victor. No. We all will lose if democracy does not work and is not allowed to prevail in our country. And we too will profit if we do what we need to do to make democracy work.
All right, we're looking at Nigerians' democracy in pursuit of good governance in relations to June 12. As it is right now, let me ask you right now, because you talked about the book that was written by the former military president, Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida, that in fact, there were a lot of controversy. People spoke, a lot of people made comments and all of that. Some persons said, well, there was no need, all right, writing about June 12. Some persons said there was need for that to be written out so that people could know. And one of the things a lot of people were saying is shifting of blames and all of that, where we heard things like, well, he wasn't the one that know the election and all of that, that's the late Sani Abacha and all of that. That's by the way. Now let's come to what we have right now, the democracy in Nigeria. There is something that a lot of Nigerians would want to be sure of. Looking at what is being practiced, some persons said, well, democracy was brought from somewhere to Nigerians. But like you said there is no better way, all right, to practice democracy. Now for Nigeria, as a Nigerian, all right, what do you think can be done by our leaders, the presidency, the governors, everyone in power, for us to have good governance in Nigeria, especially government of the people, for the people, and by the people, which is what we know as democracy?
Thank you very much. Your question is very multifaceted, and I don't know where to take it from, but let me first of all say that there is no fixed formula for democracy. Yes, there is a definition: government of the people, by the people, and for the people. How do you determine that? Those who tell us about democracy, are they practicing democracy in the way that we are aspiring to practice democracy? Do we have the same history? Do we have the same ethnic complexity and diversity as they have? Are we challenged economically in the same way? In terms of manpower, in terms of knowledge, in terms of skills, in terms of values, in terms of development, are we in the same positions? Those societies that we're aspiring to become, did they become what they are today overnight? What I'm trying to say is that democracy has to adjust and has to be defined within the context in which it is to be practiced. There is no formula for it, and it cannot be imposed. It has to be developed. It has to grow, taking into account the culture, the history, and the needs of the people. There is no formula for it. What we need to do is that, what must be made clear, however, is that there must be transparency, is that people must be able to express themselves, and that everybody's hand must be on desk to achieve what everybody wants. It is not a question of one person saying it all for everybody. It is a question of all of us participating in it through a process that we all agree that is transparent, that is fair, and that is credible. Democracy, as I said, in Nigeria, is a process and is growing. Yes, what happened in 1993 happened. But go to history of other countries that we are seeking to emulate. They also had their June 12th at some point, directly or indirectly. Although nobody is saying that what happened was, I'm not trying to justify or apologize for what happened. I'm just saying that, yes, it happened. But what lessons can we learn from it? How do we make progress from there? And that's what we have been doing as Nigeria. After the June 1993, we had a democracy restored to this country in 1999. And since 1999, for 25 years, we've had an uninterrupted process of democracy, with challenges, of course, loaded in it, but also with progress. So let us look for those areas that are where we are weak and how we can refine them and make them better. But what I think is inevitable in all of this for me, one of the lessons that we must learn from there, is that we cannot continue to have 60 parties in a country already as diverse and complicated and complex as Nigeria. That's one lesson that we must take away. And we should look for a way. Our parliament, our house people, our politicians must look for a way to reflect that, to come to a consensus on that. And we must have a system that recognizes merit. And if you have leaders who have the interests of the people at heart and who have something to offer, they will give. But if you have leadership that has nothing to offer, really, when I mean nothing, I mean nothing. What miracle are you expecting? You can pray 24 hours in the church or in the mosque because you have taken that choice to put that kind of person in power or in position, either at whatever level. That's what you get. Nemo dat non quam habet. You cannot give what you do not have. So, when you have a leader who has the interest of the people at heart, who knows what leadership is, who has humility, who has knowledge, who has competence, who has integrity, and who is ready to make sure that this is everybody's own governance, the country will rejoice and be happy about it. So let us learn those lessons. But above all, I want to also underscore the need for collective responsibility. We must know that Nigeria is our collective project. There is no class of rulers. There is no class of followers. All of us have a role to play, and we must play our part in our respective positions and capacities.
We must, and so many other things that are attached to it. In case you don't know, we are talking about the June 12th annulment and, of course, our governance, democracy in Nigeria, how democracy has been shaping, the roadmap so far, the strategies, what needs to be done, what has been done already that needs to be corrected. When we return, the desk continues. Stay with us. Welcome back from that break. It is still the desk right now on Global Television. As a matter of fact, we're talking about something very important, democracy. Nigerians clamor for democracy and said, well, we don't want military rule anymore. Let's transit into what we call civil rule. And the beginning of it was June 12, 1993. As it is always been said. Later on, we heard that the then military president said he wasn't the one that annulled that election. And all of that is bygone right now. We're looking at the way forward. Right now, as it is, I have with me right here Professor Martin Omobi, and of course, he is the former Secretary, Ministry, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and of course he is right here with us today. Now let's get back to something very important and something very vital. Now a lot of people are talking about June 12th. It's a day that we have to mark. It's a historic day, but now putting that behind us, what can you say of the policies that we have today and how these policies have affected our democracy? Is it positive or negative?
policies that we have today, that's looking at governance entirely.
Governance entirely.
I see. Well, I suppose there is hardship in the land, that's clear. And we cannot say that everybody is excited about what is going on because of those hardships coming out from policies that government has recently implemented, removal of fuel subsidy and floating of the naira and all of that. But I'm sure government has reasons, good reasons for doing what it did, and it takes responsibility for it. But I don't want to, that is really, for me, that's not the issue. The issue for me is for June 12th, is to say, how can we make governance really, really work for the people? And how can we make the progress that we need in various sectors? As I said, in governance, there is no formula, except that you want to do what the people would like you to do and what you believe is in the best interest of the citizens of the country. Now, who determines those interests? And you cannot just sit down one day and critique a policy that is a year old or 2 years old. No. You may exercise your right as a Democrat to do that. But I am sure that you have your voice when the time for election comes. And that is where your power actually comes. Are you using those powers correctly? Are you ready to make the difference by the way you express your power through the vote that you have? So those are the issues. And that's why I don't really like, because positions like this are very subjective and depends on who is speaking from whom. But definitely, from the statistics that are available, we've seen that Nigerians are going through a very challenging period in terms of prices, in terms of earnings, in terms of what they can use to buy to make life comfortable for them. But in long term, the consequences, the implications may be different. Who knows? I don't know. So I think we need a little patience on our part, all of us. And Nigerians need to be resolved that when it is time for them to exercise their power through the ballot box and through the vote, they do the right thing. And that is the only thing that we have in a democracy.
But what about people that believe their votes don't count? Because Nigerians, I could remember during the 2023 election, there were a lot of educations, voters' educations that was being done. A majority of it was centered on vote, your vote counts. Pick up your PVC. There were some places that people even refused to go pick up their PVC after the first set of elections. You know, the off-cycle elections, I could remember, was the Imo State, the people refused to pick their PVCs, and INEC was saying, go pick your PVC. All of this is because some Nigerians feel they don't believe in the system anymore. We know that, well, it is wrong for any Nigerian to abuse their franchise, all right? But then, what can we do, or what can we say will be the solution to the belief that votes don't count during election coming from Nigerians?
No, the point is this, Ramsey. Votes count, votes don't count remains an issue to be, nobody can say this is the way it must be. No. Vote should count. That's what we all aspire and are working for. How do we ensure that? I'm saying that the choice is yours, what you do yourself. If you allow your vote to be bought for 10,000 naira, who are you then to exercise control over leadership? Somebody comes and gives you in the constituency, gives you 10,000 naira, and then you vote for him. Then after that, 1 week later, you are complaining. No. So that's why I keep saying all the time, it is a process. All of us are learning lessons every day. There is no perfect democracy anywhere in the world. It's just a matter of time. We will all learn. People are now learning that their vote must count, and they must do whatever they can to ensure that their vote counts. What exactly they want to do, I don't know, and I can't prescribe. It's not my duty to prescribe. But you have a responsibility to make sure that the time and the resources that you have spent is not wasted. And that if you vote somebody in, that person does what you want him to do. It's your responsibility. So it's a very individual thing to discuss. Definitely we know that we are in a process where this is history for us. We are making progress as Nigeria, as a historian. 64 years of history as an independent country is not sufficient to give up. No. Nigerians must never give up. Nigerians, what June 12th election told us that MK Abiola never gave up. He had courage. He never recanted. He never wheeled back. If he did, we won't be talking about democracy day to day. He is from the West. He's a Yoruba man. Well, he was a Yoruba man. But it was a Fulani president, Muhammad Buhari, who apologized for what happened to him. Who gave him the order, the GCFR, Grand Commander of the Federal Republic, the highest honor in the country. It was a Fulani man who did all of that. So we are not tribalistic people. And we should never be. And anybody who is playing up his tribe for his own selfish reason is making a mistake of his life. We are talking about MK Abiola today because of what he stood out for as a Nigerian. He was a man of courage. He was a man who never gave up. And Nigerians voted for him regardless of his tribe, his religion, and whatever. That's why he is an example for us to all emulate and copy. So if you're talking about our present challenges in Nigeria, we can make progress, and we will make progress. I remain very optimistic about that.
The president is always saying there's a light at the end of the tunnel.
I believe that. I believe that it is possible, but we must do the needful. Are we doing the needful? That is the question, and that is very subjective.
All right. Well, I wish we could actually continue, but then time is right or up with us right now. But then the question is so apt. Are we doing the needful? We want to get somewhere, but are we doing what we need to do to get to the other side? Because there must be a vehicle to move us to the other side of the river. Many thanks, Prof, for joining us on the desk today.
Thank you very much, Ramsey, for having me.
All right, viewers out there, this is the size of the desk for today. Once again, happy Democracy Day. Go reflect on everything we've discussed. Let's go back and see how June 12 came and went. What are the lessons? What do we need to learn? What do we need to work on? What implications does it have on our democracy today? The desk will come on your way again, and that's going to be on Monday. Many thanks for joining us. Bye-bye for now.